They called him Monster on the first day of summer daycare. Not to his face, not loudly, but in whispers and giggles that traveled faster than truth. Max didn't know why. Maybe because he was taller than most kids his age. Maybe because he never smiled. Or maybe because, when someone accidentally bumped into him during snack time, he dropped everything and froze, fists clenched at his sides. Like he was holding something, in that he couldn't name. The counselors wrote it off as shyness. The other kids saw something else. They avoided him, laughed behind his back, and gave him the kind of space usually reserved for wild animals or kids who might suddenly explode. Max said nothing. He just showed up each morning with his silent father, who barely spoke to the staff, nodded once, then left quickly, always checking his phone. Max didn't cry. He didn't complain. He sat through arts and crafts, tag games, lunchtime, all with the same heavy stillness. Some thought he didn't understand English well. Others guessed he just didn't like anyone. No one guessed the truth, that his mom had been in the hospital for weeks, and summer daycare was the only option left. Max knew better than to hope things would be fun. Fun was a luxury for other kids. For him, summer was a waiting room. Most of the other kids had friends. They ran in groups, laughed loudly, shared snacks, and played games that Max didn't understand. He sat alone under the same tree every afternoon, watching the clouds move slowly above him. Sometimes he picked up a stick and drew shapes in the dirt. Circles, lines, a house with no windows. No one bothered him there. It was his quiet spot. One day, while walking back from the bathroom, Max took a wrong turn. Behind the building, he found an old wooden shed, half covered in vines. The door was locked, but one of the windows was cracked open. He peeked inside. The room was dusty and dark, but he could see something strange on the walls, drawings. Lots of them, some were old and faded. Others looked new. He saw animals, flowers, stars, and a big dragon with red wings. For the first time that summer, Max felt curious. He did not tell anyone about the shed. It became his secret. Every day, when the others were playing games, he walked past the trees and sat near the shed. Sometimes, he just looked inside. Sometimes, he left a drawing under the window. He did not know if anyone would see it, but it made him feel less alone. A week later, Max noticed something new. One of his drawings was gone, and in its place, someone had left a folded paper crane. Max picked up the paper crane and held it in his hands. It was smooth and light, folded with care. He didn't know who had left it, but it made his chest feel warm, like a small light had turned on inside him. The next day, he drew a picture of the crane sitting on the dragon's back and left it under the window. The day after that, there was another crane, this time blue. It had a small smiley face, drawn on one wing. Max started looking forward to the shed more than anything else. He didn't speak to the other kids, but now he had someone who didn't laugh at him, someone who answered him in quiet, careful paper. Days passed. The heat grew stronger. The kids played with water balloons and ran through sprinklers. Max stayed near the trees, always checking the shed. One afternoon, while sitting nearby, he heard soft footsteps behind him. A small girl with black hair in two braids stood there. She looked shy, but not scared. In her hand was a white crane. She placed it on the ground near him and sat down without a word. Max didn't move. He didn't know what to do. But he didn't leave. They just sat there, both silent, both watching the shed. Her name was Yumi. She came every day after that. They didn't talk, but they started drawing together. Max drew dragons, Yumi drew cats. They left pictures under the window and folded animals from colored paper. One day, it rained, and they both sat under the trees, letting the water fall around them. Their drawings held tight in their hands. For the first time all summer, Max smiled. It happened during a game of freeze tag. The counselors asked everyone to join, even Max and Yumi. At first, Max didn't want to play, but Yumi gave him a gentle nod, then he followed. The kids ran around the field, laughing and shouting. Max tried to follow the rules, but the noise and movement made his chest feel tight. A boy ran too close and bumped into him hard. Max lost balance, stumbled, and his knee hit the ground. His hands clenched the grass. His head dropped. Then, without meaning to, he shouted. It wasn't a loud word, just a sound from deep inside, a sound full of fear, and anger and confusion. The field went silent. All the kids stopped. Some of them backed away. The counselor came over quickly, helped him up, and asked if he was okay. Max nodded, but he couldn't look at anyone. The old whispers came back that afternoon. The word monster was not said out loud, but it was in their eyes. Yumi didn't say anything either. She just sat next to Max under the tree. She gave him a new drawing. A picture of a small dragon crying in the rain. Max looked at it for a long time. That night, he didn't sleep well. He thought about his mom, the machines beside his mom, the sound from the machines, the white walls, the way her hand had felt in his. Before she closed her eyes, he didn't want to go back to daycare the next day. But he did. The next morning. The sun was warm, but the air felt heavy. Max arrived at the daycare with a small paper folded carefully in his pocket. Yumi was already there, near the shed. She handed him a note with words he could read slowly. The note told the story of a boy whose mother was sick and could not be with him, and how hard it was to stay strong every day. Max felt a strange feeling inside, like the tightness in his chest was loosening. Later, Yumi showed the note to some other kids. Slowly, they began to understand. The whispers stopped. The space around Max changed from cold and empty to quiet, but safe. Some kids even came closer, sharing their toys and smiles. Max still didn't speak much, but he didn't feel invisible anymore. The shed became a meeting place. The drawings on the walls grew brighter and fuller with color. Dragons flew alongside cats, and cranes danced with stars. Max and Yumi were no longer alone. They had found a way to share their story without words. And the other kids had learned to listen in a new way. The last day of summer came fast like a gentle breeze. Max woke up early, feeling strange and nervous. He knew this day was different. At daycare, the children gathered near the old shed. Max walked slowly to the center, his heart beating loud in his chest. The counselors smiled kindly, but said nothing. Max looked at all the faces, some curious, some shy, some kind. For the first time, he felt brave enough to stand tall. He touched the paper cranes that Yumi had folded, and felt their soft edges. In his mind, he said goodbye to the monster they had called him. He was not a monster. He was a boy who was scared, who loved, who dreamed. The summer was over, but something new was beginning. The shed was no longer a secret, but a corner, for all the kids who needed a place to feel safe. They called it Max's Corner. And Max knew that, no matter what happened next, he had found friends who saw him, not as a monster, but as himself.